All right. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to start our nightly round of reports for you guys. Our nightly report here for April the 12th of 2022. Uh, we are covering the ongoing war and crisis that is unfolding in Ukraine. For those of you that are tuning back in tonight, thank you so much for tuning in to the stream again. Uh, for those of you that missed last night's stream, it is available now on the YouTube channel. For those of you that happen to miss this live stream, we will be recording it and uploading it to the YouTube channel when we are done with the reports this evening. So first off, I'm going to start out with just kind of going over the main headlines of the evening. We're then going to kind of dive in to a few of the things that we didn't have time for last night. Including kind of doing a little bit of a dive into the in-depth coverage of what happened in Chernobyl. Not just Chernobyl, though, but the many other nuclear radioactive sites across Ukraine. So that includes Zaporizhia, the nuclear plant there, as well as Chernobyl. We're going to kind of give you guys a little bit of the inside scoop onto kind of what's been happening there over the past few weeks, especially with Chernobyl. Now that the Russians have left, the Ukrainians have moved back into the site. There's been a lot of pretty crazy discoveries made there by those Ukrainian forces as they moved to recapture Chernobyl. They discovered a whole plethora of actions undertaken by the Russian soldiers that we'll cover then. We'll get into that. After that, we're also going to, one of the things we didn't have time for last night was I wanted to kind of go through with you guys, and we're going to kind of construct an outline of what I'm calling the Russian options here. So basically, we're going to go through and we're going to look at all of the options going forward that Vladimir Putin has on the table. Okay, all of the possibilities here when it comes to where this could go, all right, strategically for the Russians on the battlefield as they kind of move into this, so to speak, air quotes, second phase of the war, okay? So we're going to kind of do a deep dive into that, and I'll kind of, we'll go through on a map, and I'll kind of show you guys where this is going to go, where this is going to progress over the next few weeks, and how this is most likely going to pan out. We're going to lay out all of the possibilities when it comes to kind of where the Russian forces are going to move, what territory they could take, how the Ukrainians are going to respond to that as well. From there, we're going to go through our Live UA map, our Map Hub maps, Center for Information Resilience maps, all of those, and we're going to take a look at the updates for about the past 24 hours or so and get everybody updated on what's been going on as for those individual reports, attacks, air raids, etc. Okay. After that, towards the end of the show, we're going to have a live chat Q&A, questions and answers. So if anybody has questions or anything like that, of course, over the course of the stream, I keep an eye on the chats, and as I see people ask good questions or make comments, I do sporadically answer things. However, towards the end of the reports, towards the end of the stream, we'll have a dedicated time for doing some Q&A with you guys. So for all the questions you guys have about what's going on in Ukraine, the individual things, I can try to answer some of those things for you, some of those questions. Again, for those of you just tuning in and just joining us, you can find the links to everything you need in the description below the live stream. If you're on YouTube, you can find links to things like our sources. Some of our cams are down there. More importantly, links to donate to Ukraine are down there. You can also find a link to our Discord server. If you're looking for something in the description below the live stream and you can't find it there, it's most likely over on our Discord server. We have a whole channel devoted on our Discord server to listing all of the open source intelligence tools that we use to bring you guys these reports. There's also a whole bunch of different channels that we've created for discussion, speculation, all sorts of things around these topics, not just Ukraine, but general, abroad, open source intelligence gathering. It's been amazing what we've been able to accomplish over there. We have over 16,000 members on the Discord at this time. We'd love to have you guys over there. Again, you can find a link to that in the description below. So with that said, we're going to start kind of going through some of our main headlines for this evening. Again, if I take an occasional pause for a few seconds, bear with me. I do occasionally need to pause to either coordinate with some of my other editors or to take a drink of water, because after talking for a few hours, it can get a little bit dry. We'll be reporting tonight for about 2 hours straight. So again, from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. is the current schedule that we have been kind of locked into here. For weekdays, we'll also be reporting sporadically on the weekends, but for now it's weekdays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Is our official nightly report for that consistency that a lot of people were looking for. HM producer says Dasha looks great at work. Yeah, I think what I'll do is when I get a chance, when I go through next after this stream, probably tomorrow when I get a chance, I'm gonna go through and we're gonna redesign a whole bunch of things with the stream. And when I do that, I can actually physically slap that Dasha logo onto the cup and not just overlay it like I did in OBS. So it'll look a lot better. But yeah, if we got Dasha on the mug there, and some people requested that we put a javelin on the desk, I'll also go in and I'll do that a little bit better too when I get a chance. Okay, so the main headline topics, I'm going to start kind of going through and listing a few of those off. I'll kind of sidetrack a little bit here and there, but the main topics for this evening, continuing from last night, continuing, so to speak, of the buildup of those Russian forces in the east of Ukraine. We've seen, just over the past 12 hours here, more evidence, satellite imagery of convoys, footage of those convoys moving to the east, kind of as they look to reshuffle forces, reconsolidate those Russian forces to the east of the country for this new offensive, for what they're calling the second phase of the war. Secondly, of course, there is the reports of the chemical attack in Mariupol, which we led with last night. A lot of people are still asking about that in chat. Again, we still have not gotten concrete, 100% confirmed information on A, if that was a chemical attack, B, what chemicals were used. Earlier today, we did get some speculative information that came out that said it's possible it was phosphorus, like a phosphorus agent that was used there, or possibly even a crowd dispersal agent that was used, something like tear gas, maybe with other chemical additives. Again, we still don't have concrete information on that. So again, when we get that information in, we'll be bringing that to you immediately. So, continuing forward, another headline from tonight. Again, this is kind of like an updated number that I've been bringing you guys over the past few weeks. More than 1,800 civilians have now been reported to have been killed in Ukraine since Russia's invasion began on the 24th of February. This information comes according to the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The group has also documented nearly 2,500 injured civilians, though it says actual figures for civilian casualties are likely to be considerably higher. That information, again, comes from the Office of the UN Commissioner for Human Rights. And those numbers are expected to grow as the days and weeks go on here. Moving on from that, a Russian convoy, continuing from the report I gave a minute ago, earlier this evening, it was reported that a Russian convoy has been spotted continuing moving south toward the town of Izium in eastern Ukraine, which again has already been surrounded by heavy fighting. According to the Pentagon, again, who reported that information, the convoy is believed to be part of Russia's efforts to reposition troops in advance of a major offensive in the eastern Ukraine in the coming days. This follows the retreat of Russian troops from Kiev and other northern cities, again, leaving tens of thousands of mines in their wake. I spoke to that last night, and there was footage today, actually, that came out of them clearing more of those mines in the outer suburbs around Kiev, as well as there was footage I saw earlier today of them clearing mines in Kharkiv as well. There was some mine clearing crews that were out there today as well. Some really really stark footage from those mine clearing crews. In one video, there was an elderly woman, saying, "I woke up and I looked out my window, and 5 meters off of my window was this, uh, this green cylinder basically sitting there, this mine sitting there." And she called the explosives, the explosives guys there in Kharkiv, and they all came out and were able to take care of it. But I could only imagine waking up and seeing an anti-personnel mine that had been dispersed outside of your home. Absolutely crazy. Again, moving forward here, Ukrainian authorities, this report from earlier, arrested a fugitive oligarch and pro-Russian opposition politician, Viktor Medvedchuk. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that 100% correctly there. Zelensky shared a photo of the handcuffed Medvedchuk, who'd been under house arrest facing accusations of treason, but had escaped in February. I actually had a picture to bring up of him there. I believe it's on live UA map, so I'll bring that up for you guys later, and we'll probably touch on that as well a little bit moving forward. Another headline topic from today, Russian President Vladimir Putin delivered his first extended remarks about Ukraine since Russian forces withdrew from northern Ukraine. He blamed Kiev for derailing peace talks and said Russia would meet its noble and necessary objectives of protecting Russian speakers in Ukraine as well as Russians at home from a hostile West. Earlier, Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer offered a pessimistic report from his meeting with Putin. We covered that last night on last night's report, saying he struggled to get the Russian leader to agree to guarantee humanitarian corridors, let alone a ceasefire. Again, we reported on that meeting between Nehammer and Putin yesterday, and he was very adamant about the fact that he didn't want it to come off as a friendly diplomatic meeting with Putin, and that it was a purely I think he actually used a few different words to describe it, but I think one of them was an unfriendly and a very serious meeting with Putin. There was none of the typical press photos and stuff done when you have those diplomatic meetings. None of that. None of those pleasantries were exchanged during the meeting there. Again, so the Russian president earlier gave those statements. I believe they were at a space facility, a Russian space facility in the east of Russia, if I'm not mistaken. And he also announced that Russia is going to be rejoining the race for moon landings. Basically, how they put it is they're going to be relaunching their space program. They're going to be looking to land more astronauts on the moon, is what I took from it, which was interesting. That was the reason they were actually there at the space facility, and then the Ukraine statements kind of came as an add-on to that. I found that was kind of an interesting dynamic there, that they were kind of announcing that renewed space race, as I kind of had put it earlier. So they're looking to return to the moon, was their words. Western officials are calling for Russian authorities to release the detained opposition activist Vladimir Kara-Murza. The activist, who's been critical in the invasion of Ukraine, was arrested near his Moscow home and sentenced to 15 days in jail on the charge of disobeying a police order. Kara-Murza in 2015 and in 2017 fell in incidents of suspected poisoning. He's been close friends with murdered anti-Kremlin politician Boris Nemtsov. So again, guys, those are some of our main headlines from this evening. Again, another few add-ons to that. You have Biden's, he earlier made some statements referring to the war in Ukraine as a genocide, trying to, air quotes, wipe out Ukraine. So those were some statements earlier by the U.S. president that were made. Of course, the chemical attack in Mariupol, that's another one of the big headlines being run, again, continuing today from last night. That report actually dropped about an hour or two before I started my reports yesterday evening. So that basically took priority for last night's reports. Again, the U.S. and United Kingdom, amongst others, are currently still probing the area of Mariupol for information and confirmation on if those chemical attacks indeed did occur. About an hour or so ago, Zelensky thanks Biden for using that terminology, the word genocide, to describe the Russian invasion of Ukraine. That came again in response to those remarks by President Biden earlier today. That was made in a tweet earlier this evening. He said, "True words of a true leader," Zelensky tweeted, "calling things by their name is essential to stand up to evil. We are grateful for U.S. assistance provided so far, and we urgently need more heavy weapons to prevent further Russian atrocities." Again, another headline from this evening: the U.S. is expected to announce hundreds of millions of dollars in new military assistance to Ukraine soon. Again, this has been kind of like a broken record. They've been saying, I think a new report comes out with the same headline every day, as they try to, reassure not only the Ukrainians but the international community that they are, continuing to provide lethal and defensive aid to Ukraine. As this situation progresses. Again, just to clarify on those statements earlier, Biden said again, that it has become clear now that Putin is committing genocide in Ukraine. Again, he called him a war criminal in previous statements, and so this is just kind of an uptick in that rhetoric that we've seen. France has frozen more than $25 billion worth of Russian assets. That was from the French Finance Ministry earlier. It was on Tuesday. That ministry published a detailed list of Russian assets worth 23.7 billion euros, or equated to 25.6 billion US dollars, which it has frozen since Russia invaded Ukraine on the 24th of February. Assets belonging to Russian Central Bank, which the ministry says are worth 22.8 billion euros, make up the bulk of those frozen assets. Switch back over to our cam room here while I continue to kind of give some of these reports. I can swap back and forth, but I know some of you wanted to keep an eye on some of those cameras, so we'll do that here. The International Chemical Weapons Watchdog is concerned in a statement earlier by unconfirmed reports of chemical weapons use in Mariupol. That comes as they are still trying to get people on the ground. They're trying to get information from Mariupol on what exactly occurred there with this possible chemical weapons attack that occurred there. This came in about 3 hours ago. Ukrainian military has reported a 5-hour battle in central Zaporizhia region as forces try to liberate the area. Again, that's why I have the Zaporizhia cam up in slot 1. As earlier this evening, I saw a few, what I think are some light flashes in the far background of the sky there. This is not near the nuclear plant. It's in the same oblast as the plant. It's in the same region. However, that's why we had that Zaporizhia cam there again. Ukrainian military reports 5-hour battle in central Zaporizhia region as forces try to liberate the area. The Zaporizhia Regional Military Administration said a 5-hour battle took place in the Polohi district as Ukrainian forces tried to liberate the area. After units of the Regional Territorial Defense Brigade occupied part of the district, Russian reinforcements forced them to withdraw, according to Colonel Ivan Efereviv, spokesperson for the military administration in that area. Again, another report from earlier today, the OSCE, that's that observation commission, I believe they're an independent watchdog. The OSCE will publish findings of investigation into human rights abuses in Russia That comes tomorrow. So we'll have that report for you tomorrow when they have that information. Again, on Wednesday, they said they will publish the findings of its investigation into human rights abuses and atrocities committed in the ongoing Russian war in Ukraine, according to the spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the OSCE. It is unclear what the findings of the report will be at this point. Again, I doubt it'll have much effect on Russia and their actions moving forward. We'll see what that report finds tomorrow. Another headline topic from earlier today that I think is worth noting is reports have come out saying China's echoes of Russia's alternate reality have started to intensify. As you see in China on a lot of state media, they're starting to parrot this Russian propaganda and this Russian narrative that we've seen play out on Russian television, in Russian media. We're starting to see that same information narrative being pushed in Chinese television, and that is a very concerning development, to say the least. I think as this situation progresses, I think we're probably going to see more of that in the future. Okay, so switching back over here to the newsroom. I guess actually we can go down to the pointer screen. So I'm gonna now that we got all of the headlines for tonight out of the way, we're gonna swap back over. We're gonna switch back over again, to the map here, so I can show you a few things. So next one I wanted to get into is what we didn't have time for last night. There's two things I didn't have time to cover last night. One being the Chernobyl situation, which many people have asked about, and not just Chernobyl, but the situation with the many power plants in Ukraine that are at risk at this time. Fancy had actually just reported to me just now that the Kharkiv camera currently has strikes ongoing. So while I speak a little bit about Chernobyl, I'm actually going to switch back over to Kharkiv. I'm going to switch back over to our cam room here, and I'm going to swap out these two cameras. Sorry about that, guys. Give me 1 second here. Stand by while I swap these out. He says there are some strikes ongoing on the Kharkiv cam, and so I want to make sure to have that up on screen for you guys here. Got our Kharkiv ski cam here, who is are the sources being managed currently by Fancy Hat, one of our mods here on the stream. So again, thank you for that, Fancy Hat. So again, I got those labels swapped around here. Okay, so some strikes ongoing on this Kharkiv ski cam here in cam slot 1 that I have up for you guys now. So we're going to keep an eye on that. He said it was absolutely lighting up. Yeah, strike about a minute ago, about 2 minutes ago, strikes of 10 minutes ago. Is that glow a fire? Are we seeing a fire off to the right there? Yeah, we're going to keep an eye on that ski cam. I'm actually looking at another monitor, though, so if I miss anything, you guys will have to sound off in chat and let me know. Okay, so covering the Chernobyl situation, a lot of people have asked for information on that. Okay, so as most of you probably know by now, so the first topic here is plant control and kind of a recap of what's happened. All right, so at the beginning of the invasion, Russian forces moved over the border from Belarus. Okay, they moved down from the north. They took control over the plant pretty swiftly as they moved down towards Kiev. So they took that plant over, and they controlled it right up until the Russians pulled out here over the past few weeks. The Russians pulled out, and during that time, the Ukrainians have then moved in. Well, while the Russians were there, had taken the plant. In fact, during the battle for Chernobyl, hours leading after the battle, we immediately noticed on our open source radiological monitoring sites an increase in radiation. Okay, We reported on that for many days. It was, again, it took us about a week or so before, after speculating that it was from dust kicked up from artillery fire and, vehicle movements, we finally got the concrete evidence that there was a waste storage facility that was breached there in the Chernobyl zone. It turned out not to be too bad. However, there has been an increase in radiation across the zone. Not to mention, so you have that whole situation that unfolded during the battle, and then leading after the battle, the Russians there as they occupied the area. Okay. Um, Really quickly, a tangent that I had noted here is operator safety. So the plant staff, they were forced to stay within the plant, as also is the case at the Zaporizhia plant. For some time, the plant staff was being basically held hostage in the plant at Chernobyl. They were there for, I think, up to 2 weeks before they were able to go home and have a shift change. So there was the concern about operator safety for that plant staff at the nuclear plants there. That was the real concern during this. Not just the possible release of radiation, the risk of meltdown. As we eventually analyzed, was pretty low, if not next to none. However, the risk of radiological contamination from possible kinetic bombardment of one of these radioactive fuel sites, that was a little bit higher. So that risk was a little bit higher, but mostly was about the concern of the operator safety for those plant staff that were working at those nuclear plants. Okay. As for the radioactive status of the zone, so really quickly before I touch on that, I guess the real big headline topic here, is the Russian trenches. So it has been proved. So far, in fact we have photos of that as well. In fact, I could probably just bring those up here quick. I forgot to have a photo on deck for those, but give me 1 second and I'll bring that up for you guys. So if we go back down, we'll go back to our newsroom here. And we'll go up here to our screen. So these are pictures of those radioactive trenches here from the sky. And then some pictures from the ground as well. Samir, thank you so much for subscribing today. Thank you for the support there. So yeah, basically it's been found that they were directly digging in radioactive soil. One of the headlines that I just saw a minute ago: Russians who dug trenches in the Red Forest will face radiation sickness. There was reports of Russian soldiers that had already started treatment for some of that radioactive exposure. Ukrainian officials reported Saturday, so this was 3 days ago, abnormally high radiation in areas of Chernobyl exclusion zone. So there's not only been reports of possible contamination from kinetic bombardment of some of those radioactive sites, okay, if that's from artillery, mortars, etc., but also from them disturbing the soil in so many different areas in and around the site. So that's been kind of the main story here about Chernobyl, is just the fact that the Russians were dumb enough to dig in that soil, and now that we've confirmed that there is in fact increases of radiation in the zone, zone-wide, not just localized outbreaks. This is zone-wide contamination in most of these areas. All right, so we got our live UA map back up here. So to cap that off, of course, the Russian trenches, so the radioactive status of the zone is currently, it's safe, but elevated, very elevated. In fact, if we bring up our, where are they here? No, not there. In fact, 1 second, guys. I'm going to bring up our radioactive monitoring map here, which might now have those monitoring sites back up now that the Ukrainians have taken control of the zone, the exclusion zone. Oh, that's what I'm referring to there. We might have those monitoring sites back up online. I actually have not checked them in a few days, so I'm going to check those now. I gotta just open up my... Oh, here we go. Here's our radiation maps. I'm gonna tune... Roger, thank you so much for subscribing. I'm gonna go down to our pointer screen here, so you guys can actually see here. Okay, so when the battle for Chernobyl originally happened, we were monitoring these sites here and saw immediate increases in the radioactive material at some of these sites. Now, as you can see here, this data is out of date. The last data from these monitoring sites is March 1st. What beats me is why have they not restarted the... I mean, like, why have they not restarted? I guess maybe a lot of that monitoring hardware is probably damaged from those Russian forces, so that's probably the biggest reason why we don't have up-to-date information on these maps. However, from the reports I've seen directly out of the zone by the guys on the ground monitoring, the Ukrainians on the ground monitoring, there has been confirmed increased levels of radiation in the area. There was also reports that some of the Russians were dumb enough to take like capsules of radioactive material with them as souvenirs, was the headline report that I gave last night, and that some of those men had already fallen victim to some of the symptoms from that radioactive exposure. All right, so we'll go back up here to our situation room just in case we see any activity on our ski cam, which has had some of those strikes over the past short while here. Evelina, thank you so much for subscribing. Glad to have you on board. And I guess I'll return to our live UA map there. And I'll give that a quick refresh. There we go. So we do have quite a few air raid sirens. We'll get to that here in a minute. Okay, so that wraps up on the kind of so actually, no, it doesn't. One more point I had to that was the other nuclear plants. So there's still concern about the plant in Zaporizhia. Okay, there's still a lack of information, confirmed information that we're getting out of those plants, and there's a few other radioactive sites in Ukraine that are still under threat at this time, and that we need to keep our eye on. The Zaporizhia plant has exchanged hands between the Russians and the Ukrainians multiple times over the past weeks and months since this conflict has began. In fact, a lot of you might have tuned in to the battle for Zaporizhia the night that occurred here on the stream. So as for those plants at this time, again, they are still under, especially Zaporizhia is still under conflict at this time. And is still under immediate threat. I guess the same could be said for the area around Chernobyl, but with the exception of that those Russian soldiers have now moved out officially of the zone. I don't think they would purposely try to bombard those radioactive sites in and around Chernobyl, but that remains to be seen. Eli Guy points out to me that when I pronounce Zaporizhia, it is Saporizhia. Yeah, I know. I have a hard time with some of these pronunciations, but I try my best. All right, so moving on from that, the next big topic I had here for this evening was we're going to go through and I'm going to kind of do a little bit of analysis. A little bit of analysis on kind of what I'm calling the Russian options. So give me a second here while I get this graphic up here on screen. Fancy Hats repository. Is that a video of the? Is that a full video of the Zaporizhia battle? If so, I would definitely recommend some people check that out. That was a very eventful night for sure. All right. Give me 1 second here, guys, while I try to bring up this image for you, so that we can do a little bit of analysis here. Okay. Stand by here while I get this up on screen for us. Fancy Hat someone at the plant basically started screen capping, screen recording it a bit before the column was visible. It was like 6 hours, I think, in advance that people were looking at those cams. In our community here, it was about like a 5 or 6 hour advance of that's how long it took the Russians to actually make it to the compound, into the plant compound. So yeah, it looks like the original way I wanted to display this graphic to you guys is actually not working. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try to load it up into another editor here. Oh, that'll do. Okay. Okay, we're actually going to go full screen with this too, I think. Actually, I'm just going to cover up, we'll cover up like the top 4 squares so that we can still see that ski cam, because there's some fighting happening on that ski cam, so I want to keep that up on screen for you guys. Okay, so some people have been requesting that I do kind of a bit of an outline of just like what are the possibilities here moving forward. Like everybody keeps asking me the question, what's going to happen moving forward here? What are the possibilities? What are the options that the Russians have on the table here? So that's what we're going to do here. So I have this little chintzy graphic here that we're going to use, which you guys should be able to see here. You should be able to see my mouse pretty well, actually. Okay, so basically what we're going to do here is we're going to kind of outline the options, again, the possibilities going forward strategically that the Russians have available to them. So just to make everything clear for everybody here, outline-wise, let's see if this is that going to work? Okay, so in yellow here, you could see the border of Ukraine. Okay, the current border. All right. Of course, this doesn't include the captured territory by the Russians. I'm excluding the captured territory. All right. So I'm outlined in yellow here is the territory in which they currently control. The Ukrainians are currently in full control of this territory. I guess you could also consider this tiny speck down here by Mariupol. Okay. So, right now you have the Russians, all right? You have the Russians re-diverging forces from Belarus over here in the east, moving this way. Okay, they're moving westward. All right. You have forces from all over this area moving westbound. Okay. all right, into this area of the Donbass, particularly here to the Belgorod Oblast here in this region, okay, so that they can link up with the Russian forces that are already in that area around Kiev. Sorry, around Kharkiv, sorry. And the same thing is happening, retract there, the same thing is happening down here from the south. The Russians are moving and reconsolidating forces this way, and out of the east as well, out of Russia, the far east. They're reconsolidating forces, removing forces in. So I guess we can kind of we can show it kind of like this. All right, they're moving forces from these areas all to Kharkiv, and then to the east here to the Donbass, and then they're also looking to reposition forces from Russia into Crimea, and more particularly just north of Crimea here in the Kherson Oblast. All right, and so what's going to happen here? All right, the first possibility moving forward is simply that they capture the Donbass. Okay, so if I go here, we'll circle the Donbass here. Or not necessarily the entirety of the Donbass, but what territory they have control of now, plus some. So I'll show you here in a second if I can get the right thing here. There we go. Okay, so they currently control. I'll show you with the red. They currently control this, of course, right? Okay, here. But the possibility is that they will they'll look to move forces in from Kharkiv here, all right, and up from Zaporizhia here, okay, which will effectively render this pocket of Ukrainian resistance here cut off from the ability to retreat. Okay, so that's my first option here. So they're going to cap the Donbass, or capture the Donbass. All right, so this area here marked in green. All right, let's just say this entire area here. Okay, marked in a green circle there. All right, and I'll go ahead and I'll write that on our little guideline here. All right, so they want to cap. Hold on, I'll lower my text size down there a little bit. They want to capture the Donbass. Okay, just like that. Okay, so that's the first option there. All right, is that they're going to capture the Donbass, which you see here circled in green. In fact, actually, really quickly, I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove all this scribbling really quickly here. And we'll just go ahead and type that in. So they're going to cap the Donbass, okay? All right. So, again, and just to go back into the green here, that's basically this entire area here, all right? West of this green line, okay, is what they would be looking to capture. All right. The second option is, and again, I'm going to get my text up here, and I'm going to write that down, is that they cap the Donbass. All right. They capture the Donbass. God dang it. There we go. They cap the Donbass, right? And then they also cap Mariupol. Okay. Now, the reason that I am making that a separate option, all right, is because it's very well possible that the Russians don't capture Mariupol here, okay? Now, if, say, that doesn't happen, if things don't go as planned for the Russians, all right, when this renewed offensive begins, all right, let's say, you know, they're moving all these forces westward, right? Okay, when this begins, all right, let's say it doesn't go for them, it doesn't go well for them, all right, they might only, you know, capture a short amount of territory, and then, you know, and then pull out, all right, and say by May 9th, and say, okay, we've you know, secured this region here in the Donbass. In fact, I'll just go ahead and we'll just circle that in green. So like this area here, but not including Mariupol. Okay, that's always a possibility. All right, now if we if we look into the possibility of them capturing Mariupol, the reason they would do that, and the reason they need to do that, is because with Mariupol gone, all right, they have clear control right down this red line here, all the way down to Crimea. Okay, they have basically that land bridge that they've been looking for here in between the Donbass and Crimea. Okay, so the first option here is that with this renewed offensive, they capture the Donbass. Okay, and then they pull out May 9th victory parade. Everything's all good. They leave. They go home. Okay. Uh, Second option on the table, of course, is that they capture the Donbass. All right. So I'll circle it in green. They capture the Donbass, and then they also take Mariupol, connecting the land bridge to Crimea here. Okay. All right. So for our third option, okay, is actually we want that. All right. So for our third option is that they capture the Donbass, they capture Mariupol, and if they have success in doing both of these things, they will try to again. Hold on, as I change colors here. They will cap the South. Okay. All right. But before, and the reason I'm listing these in case you haven't noticed yet, in order. All right. And this is basically how this is going to unfold. Is first they have to try to take control of the Donbass in this region here. Mariupol, of course, is a secondary priority. All right. Once they have the Donbass on lock, and more specifically, once they move those forces here from the north out of Kharkiv and up from here out of Zaporizhia, they will again cut off those Ukrainian forces that are here on that kind of eastern front along the Donetsk and Luhansk republics there. Okay. So that's what equates to them capturing the Donbass, is that pincer movement of them moving down this way and up from this way to cut off those Ukrainian forces that are there. Okay. The second objective, again, being that they cap Mariupol. All right. They need to be able to take Mariupol again so they can secure, again, this land bridge between Mariupol, Zaporizhia, and the Crimean Peninsula. Okay. Once those are taken care of, the other possibility is that they cap the South. Okay. It would look like this. All right. Just shade in this area here with red. Have them take Odessa, and bing bada boom, they have the entire southern coastline of Ukraine, and that would render Ukraine a landlocked state, which would drastically harm their economy. Okay. Now, for that to occur, and I've spoken about this a few times, for that to occur, and what many military analysts are saying, what the Ukrainian Defense Forces have just come out to say yesterday, or I believe this was the day before yesterday now, they've said that it's growing increasingly more likely that we're going to see involvement from the Russian assets that are in Transnistria, the breakaway region here. They're right by Odessa here. Okay, and so if those Russian forces moving from the east and from Sevastopol, from Crimea, with that Russian naval hardware, if that Russian naval hardware is going to launch an assault on Odessa, I just heard either what sounded like wind or an explosion there on our Kiev camera. We'll keep listening to that. Anyway, if the forces from Crimea and the forces from the Kherson Oblast here out of the... Okay, I just heard that again. Not sure what that is, if that's an explosion in Kiev. Jeez, sounds... I'm not sure if that's wind or explosions. It sounded like a boom. That sounded like a pretty big explosion. Yeah, I'm not sure. We'll check into that in just a few moments here. Actually, I'm hearing it again. Yeah, we're hearing multiple explosions. I just want to clarify real quick. I want to make sure that what our audio stream is. Okay, so currently I have an audio stream coming out of Kiev and Kharkiv. That could be our Kharkiv audio feed, possibly. I'm going to mute one or the other and we'll see. Yeah, it looks like we just heard some booms there. I think that might have been our Kharkiv audio that we were hearing. Those explosions on. I do have a few different channels up right now of that audio. Again, we'll keep listening into it. There it is again. Yeah, we're hearing, yeah, we're definitely hearing audio off Kharkiv. I'm checking all of my feeds here just to make sure it's not a separate feed. I think it's the Kharkiv feed. I'm just going through and making sure I'm checking all my. I have literally like 100 different live feeds open here, so I'm just making sure that we're not getting redundant audio from another one. Yeah, I think it sounds. Yeah, somebody said it sounds like outgoing fire, kind of. It does kind of sound like outgoing fire, maybe. Yeah, like JR says, can't tell if it's a whoosh or a boom. I'm double checking all my feeds here, quick guys, just to. I'm muting feeds and seeing if we can. Sounds like a whoosh. Yeah, it sounds like a whoosh. Somebody said sounded like wind. Almost did at first. Yeah. That's why I wasn't really paying attention to it because I thought it maybe was wind on that cam. Flash on cam 1, yeah, I think Fancy Hat said that he saw, or somebody said, Chandler Coleman said round shrapnel on cam 1. All right, we're going to keep an eye on that, but for now I'm going to move on. So yeah, anyway, as I was saying, we were talking again about them capturing the southern coast here. The reason I think that to be a possibility, uh, or sorry, not so much that they're going to capture the southern coast, but the involvement from the Transnistrian forces here is because they're going to need those extra forces if they're going to take Odessa, even if it is a few battalion tactical groups that come out of the west there. They will definitely play a role. So close to Odessa, there's no way they're not going to get them involved. It's right there. Any connection of the Russian controlled territory here. Um, in Zaporizhia and here above Odessa will most likely, again, connect right over to here to Transnistria. Sorry to make a total mess of scribbles there on the screen, but you guys kind of get the gist there. So, first option being that they control the Donbass, okay, and that they leave with that, okay? Second option being that they control the Donbass and Mariupol, linking down to Crimea here, okay? That's possible, all right? Third option being that they capture the Donbass, their land bridge to Crimea, and the southern coast to Odessa. Okay, that is possible as well. Of course, the actual level of territory control won't be as big as the globulous circles that I've written on the screen here, but you get the gist. Okay, those are basically the three main options here. That are possible. Okay, moving on from there, if they're able to accomplish those goals, which again are going to be pretty challenging for the Russians in their current state. Okay, if they accomplish those goals, next for them from there will be to cap to the Dnieper. Okay, so if they take, and again, I'll go ahead and I'll write in our text here for this. Cap to the Dnieper. Is that how you spell it? Dnieper? Dnieper? Is it an ER? I'm going to look really quick on the map here. I just want to make sure that I'm not spelling it wrong. I think it's Dnieper. Yeah, Dnieper. Dnieper. Yes, okay, I got it right. Okay, good. All right, so cap to the Dnieper. All right. Again, my pronunciation and spelling with some of these Ukrainian and Russian names can sometimes be a little faulty. So, again, thank you for bearing with me on that. I believe so. Again, we've gone through what the first three options here. Okay, cap the Donbass, and cap Mariupol, and then capture the south. Okay, um, if they were to accomplish those goals, what we could see from them next, if they were to push farther eastward, okay, if they're able to take this territory, they might push right up to the Dnieper. Okay, now as far how far north they go with that push is anybody's guess. It's possible that over time, over a long grind, they could, continue to move eastward, and we could see ourselves right up against Kiev again, right along the Dnieper here, right along the river. And you see this red line that I'm drawing now might be our DMZ, so to speak. So yeah, some more flashes being spotted on Cam 1 on our Kharkiv ski cam as I'm trying to give this report here. We're going to try to keep an eye on those. Those booms we heard might have been out of Kharkiv. I did go ahead and I muted a few of our audio streams there to make sure that we're not getting any redundant audio, because that's never good. Okay, so capping to the Dnieper. Again, that is always a possibility, and we've talked about that before. They have to first, though, they have to capture the Donbass, and before they were even to move further eastward, they'd probably have to take Mariupol as well. Okay. Do they need the southern coast to go as far as the Dnieper? No, they don't. They don't need that. But if they do, if they're successful in moving eastward in this renewed offensive that they're talking about, if they're successful in that, they might get as far as the Dnieper here, as Cherkasy. They might take the city of Dnipro. That's always possible. Hold on, let's go forward here, get a little bit. There we go. And then so the last option that I see for them, I guess not, but the second to last option here would be for them to cap to MO5. All right, which again is even less likely than them capping to the Dnieper. All right. The MO5 being the highway that you could see here that runs down the center of Ukraine. Okay, and I've said this a few times that this is a possibility. Actually, hold on. Let's go back to the red here. So here's the MO5 highway. Whoops. Let's go right down it there. Okay, so here's the MO5 highway. It goes from Kiev right down to Odessa. Okay, so you either have the possibility of them dividing the country in half at the Dnieper River, okay, which would look like that, or them going down the MO5 here at this highway here. Again, they would have to take even more territory pushing eastward, and for them to take everything to the MO5, they would need Odessa. They would need the southern coast here. They would need Moldova and they would need Transnistria here, this breakaway region. They would need to connect basically that to the southern coast land bridge to Zaporizhia up to the Donbass here, and then they would need to push in from the east here and up from the south here in order to take this territory here. If they got as far as Kiev, I doubt they would be able to take the city of Kiev. Maybe if this war keeps going, anything is possible. I mean, if they kept on pushing eastward or westward, sorry, they could eventually get back to Kiev. Are we going to see another lightning strike, another lightning a move on Kiev? No, I don't think we will. I think that is very, very unlikely. As a last option, I would say, and of course, there's many more options that could occur here. There's many more eventualities, including, there's always the idea that they could, use something like chemical weapons or a low-yield tactical nuke or something of that sort in Kiev, in somewhere in Ukraine, in order to avoid having to take any of these regions. right? In an effort to take the whole country and get the Ukrainians to secede, so to speak. However, that's very unlikely, so that's why that's not on the list. However, as a last resort option for the Russians, I see them as possibly retreating. Okay, retreat is their final option here. Now, the problem with that theory, the problem with the theory that the Russians would retreat, is that they've stated that they're not going to. Okay, and before they retreat, they're going to resort to more drastic measures. Okay, things like chemical weapons, possibly nuclear weapons, etc. All right. Do I think that they're going to just give up and go home and retreat? I mean, they did pull out of Kiev, but they didn't give up the war. They didn't pull out of the war. Okay, and so that's what gives me the feeling that we're not going to see them retreat. But as for our guidelines here, as for our kind of 1 second here, Lee. As for our kind of guidelines, as for our options as to what's going to happen here with this new renewed offensive, right? These are the options here to the Russians. They can capture the Donbass, right? They can attempt that pincer movement from here and here to cut off those Ukrainian forces in that area, okay? Okay, so they can do that. They can capture the Donbass. They can capture the Donbass, and they can capture Mariupol and everything here down to Zaporizhia and have that land bridge to Crimea. And they could leave it at that. And then they could go as far as the south as well, cap that as well. And then, of course, you have the extended objectives there of pushing to the Dnieper or pushing to the MO5. Again, those are the options here that the Russians have on their table. And then, of course, retreating as well. Is also a possibility. Taz6 says always forgets the phobe. Yeah, again, yeah, or sorry, not small, but large conventional ordnance could be used as well. That's always a possibility. That definitely is always possible. So, looks like the Kharkiv cam went dark there for a second, and I'm going to try to get that back up. There we go. Sorry, it got a little bit behind on my end, Fancy. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get that off screen now. Again, that's kind of like our guideline going forward here, all right, is them capping the Donbass, cap Mariupol, cap the south, cap the Dnieper, and then cap the MO5 if that's possible. Of course, they could always go farther than that too, but I don't think it's going to go that well for them. All right, so we're going to remove that window capture out of there. All right, so next up is we're going to switch over to Live UA Map and our other maps, and we're going to start taking a look at all of the activity that's happened over the past about 12 to 24 hours or so. And I'll bring you guys all those individual reports really quickly. I'm going to go and grab a water, so we're going to take just a quick 1 minute break here while I grab a water bottle, and I will be right back in just a moment. All right, so somebody has alerted me that the clock is behind again. All right, it's fixed now. I'm actually going to be updating the clock and a few other things with the 24/7 cam stream. We'll be updating a few of those things, including the clock. We're going to be replacing the clock with a clock that doesn't freeze, and we're going to be making the cameras all redundant, as well as a few of our other systems, including the audio. We'll be building in some redundancies in those in the coming days to make that a lot better. Yeah, the cursed clock is going to be completely and utterly removed and replaced with a new system that won't freeze. For some reason, it's like the first month and a half I used the clock, never had an issue, and then all of a sudden now we're having issues randomly. All right, so now we're going to switch over to live UA map, and we're going to start going through some of the reports from the last 24 hours or so. All right, we'll go to, our pointer screen here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and just really quickly, I'll refresh it. And then we're going to go all the way down to about the 20-hour mark or so, about the 24-hour mark if we can get back that far. Stand by while I get that up on screen. Okay, so this is where we were yesterday. Two missile attacks, so I'll start here at the 20-hour mark. Two missile attacks overnight in Dniprovsk region. One hit an old farm in the Silinohovki district. One missile was shot down. I'm going to go ahead and just refresh, though, because it's locking up and not showing me what I want to see. There we go. Another post here from 20 hours ago. Governor Haidai says Russian forces shell Luhansk Oblast overnight on April 12th. Luhansk Oblast Governor Sherhi reported that Russian forces attacked Severodonetsk, Lysychansk, Kremenia, and a few other places, Rubizin as well. Again, I'm not an expert on Ukrainian town pronunciation, so thank you for bearing with me on that. But a lot of shelling in those oblasts and in those areas overnight. 20 hours ago, Russian Ministry of Defense says it has destroyed a Bayraktar TB2 drone with naval air defense system near Crimea. I believe that's actually one of the first reports I've seen of a Bayraktar actually being downed by the Russians. So 19 hours ago, an MLRS grad shelling from Nova Kakova and Kherson this morning. That's located here on the map. In Kherson there. 19 hours ago, a missile launch from Noah Kakova. So I think that actually might be maybe an air defense missile, or I don't know. I can look, but you see here's a picture of that missile launch. This could be maybe an air defense missile or possibly a ballistic missile being launched. But that comes right after this report of that MLRS grad launch in the same air, well, over here in Kherson, so a little bit to the west there. Again, 19 hours ago, Russian missile strike reported in Kalminsky region overnight. That's located here in the west of Ukraine, not too far from Vinnytsia, located here. You can see that strike located on the map there. 19 hours ago, 6,252 UXOs were found and neutralized by civil defense rescuers in the last 24 hours. Again, that stands for unexploded ordnances outside of Kiev here, primarily in the area around Bucha and Irpin. Again, I was speaking to that earlier. There was bomb disposal teams out in force in both Kiev Oblast, Kharkiv Oblast, and Mariupol today, taking care of unexploded ordnances that have been left behind by Russian forces. 19 hours ago, Russian Ministry of Defense in the morning briefing reports multiple aerial strikes on Mariupol. Here you can see that report in the center of the city there. Those come from, again, aerial strikes, most likely from Russian aircraft, as the logo entails there. 19 hours ago, the head of the NATO military committee says the result of the war on Ukraine is the strengthening of the alliance's presence on the borders of Russia, which we have seen direct evidence of over the past month or so here, with that increased readiness level from NATO and NATO partner countries as they beef up the defenses along the borders with Russia, amongst other things. 19 hours ago, Russian Aviation Agency extension of restrictions on air traffic and the closure of airports in southern and southwestern Russia until April 19th. This comes as the Russian airspace has been alienated and Russian aircraft have been banned from flying over quite a few countries' airspace um, in both Europe and the Americas. 19 hours ago, a Russian airplane was shot down on the border between Dnipro-Petrovisk and Donetsk regions today. Again, that is most likely a Russian military aircraft that was shot down by an air defense system. Again, we're going to have to wait to get more information on that report. Head of the NATO military committee says the alliance will not provide Ukraine with soldiers or aircraft in its war with Russia. This comes as a lot of countries are providing lethal aid, but a lot of these countries are drawing the line at providing things like aircraft and more specifically soldiers, because that is where Russia starts to draw the line. Is when some of these countries are starting to provide boots on the ground and things like aircraft. Aircraft is a big one for Russia. 19 hours ago, head of the NATO military committee says Ukraine urgently needs non-military assistance as well. Again, this comes as that a humanitarian crisis continues to grow in Ukraine, and they're in high need of things, not only ammunition, not only lethal aid, but things like medication, food supplies, humanitarian supplies of all sorts of kinds in that country. Uh, So, 19 hours ago here, Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has information on chemicals used in Mariupol last night. However, it is still being investigated. Preliminary data show it could be phosphorus ammunition. Again, I reported on that earlier this evening. There's been multiple conflicting reports as to what exactly those munitions might have been, if they were in fact chemicals, or if they were, again, white phosphorus was used. Again, there's a whole bunch of different conflicting reports on that at this time. I bet by tomorrow we'll have some more concrete information on that for tomorrow's report, for those of you that are wanting to hear more on that chemical attack in Mariupol. 18 hours ago, a railway bridge was damaged in Shebenkio district of Belgrade region. The Russian investigative community opened a investigation. 18 hours ago, almost two-thirds of Ukrainian children have fled their homes, the UN says. About 4.8 million out of the 7.5 million children have had to leave their homes, said Manuel Fontaine from UNICEF. He confirmed the deaths of 142 children, but added that the number is almost certainly higher. And again, we'll see those numbers most likely increase over the coming days and weeks. 64-year-old man was killed, vehicle destroyed as a result of a landmine explosion in the Chernihiv region. You can see a picture of his mangled car there. Again, horrible devastation there to the civilian population in many different regions in and around Ukraine. Authorities in Belgrade region call volunteers to join militia to help police in the nighttime. Again, this is up here in Russia. This comes after they have increased the threat terrorist level in both Russia here, and in Crimea. Those reports came yesterday. 16 hours ago, bodies of 6 civilians killed by Russian army were found in the basement in the village of Shivakenchkov, Brovary district in the Kiev region. That, again, comes as, in fact, I showed a map on last night's report from Bucha, actually, of the of all of the bodies and war crimes that have been spotted there. There was actually a map of just where they had located bodies in things like basements and inside houses and stuff like that that hadn't been reported. 15 hours ago, explosions were audible in Kharkiv. This comes as continuing reports of shelling in Kharkiv. Again, sound like a broken record. I like to reiterate that Kharkiv has probably been one of the heaviest hit areas in all of Ukraine. 15 hours ago, Frontline pushed from the administrative border of Dnipropetrovsk region deep into Kherson region ahead of the Kryvyi Rih administration said. Again, that's located on the map here, near the Zaporizhia Oblast, kind of to the west of the Zaporizhia Oblast there. 13 hours ago, 4 killed, including a 13-year-old boy, as a result of a Russian attack on civilian vehicles near the Peremoa village in the beginning of March. Again, that was located here on the map. That is east of Kiev there, Borispil, a little bit northeast of Borispil. 13 hours ago, Putin, after meeting with Lukashenko, says war in Ukraine is going according to initial plan of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Russia. Again, you can see a disclaimer there saying that this event is known propaganda displayed for awareness. To them, however, to the Russians, what Putin and Lukashenko want you to think is that the war so far is going according to plan. 13 hours ago, Putin says Ukraine talks are in a dead end. Again, that is not a good sign to see that rhetoric being used. All right, continuing on. 11 hours ago, the U.S. has delivered a significant amount of the first 100 Switchblade drones to Ukrainian troops, and the kamikaze drones are being used in the field, says a senior U.S. defense official. The U.S. is working hard to expedite the supplies of more of the drones that detonate over targets. Again, I was explaining last night is the reason why they're sending these drones now, and the reason that they need them now, is because now that we're in the second phase of this war in the east, in fact, if I zoom out here and show you, the territory in this area of the east here is a lot different than the territory up here by Kiev. It's wide open fields. There's not a lot of cover. The terrain is very flat and open. So it renders things like Javelin missile systems and a lot of the anti-tank guided munitions that they've been using so far a lot less effective. And so the reason they're using these Switchblade drones now, they're switching from Javelins to Switchblade drones. Okay, the drones they can reach out farther to these Russian convoys, to these Russian tanks, and detonate on target, destroying these Russian vehicles while keeping the operators out of harm's way at a good distance. The U.S. Has examined the possibility that Russia could disguise a chemical attack by mixing in riot control agents, as a senior U.S. defense official. U.S. is not clear whether that occurred in Ukraine's besieged city of Mariupol, where the Azov regiment said Russia has used chemical agents. Again, when I broke that report to you guys last night, the initial speculation was that they might have used a crowd dispersal agent such as tear gas and then mixed in other chemicals to make it more volatile. So they would use the tear gas basically to disguise the fact that they're using a more volatile agent in that chemical dispersal. 11 hours ago, TechCrunch says Ukraine disrupts attempt by Russian hackers to take down energy provider. Again, that was a fairly significant report from earlier today about that cyber attack that occurred in Ukraine. It's one of hundreds of known cyber attacks and exploits that have been taken advantage of by the Russians in the past month or two here since this war began. I would like to say that a large portion of this war is happening on the cyber front as we are speaking right now, not just within the borders of Ukraine, but outside them as well. 11 hours ago, Reuters reports that Croatia has told 24 Russian embassy staff to leave over Russia's invasion of Ukraine and brutal aggression. 11 hours ago, Steinmer, not looking happy, having received news of Ukraine blocking trip, says he wanted to send strong signal of EU solidarity alongside presidents of Baltic and Poland. I was ready, but apparently I need to take note. This was not desired in Kiev. 11 hours ago, 2,343 people were evacuated to safe areas today from Mariupol, Berdyansk, and other cities of Zaporizhia region. 328 were evacuated from Lysychansk, Severodonetsk, Rubizin, Kremenia, and Papanza of Luhansk region. Again, sorry guys for the pronunciation on those. 10 hours ago here, Boris Johnson says that I've just spoken to the President of the United States and updated him on my meeting with President Zelensky of Ukraine in Kiev this weekend. Our joint focus remains on supporting President Zelensky and the Ukrainian people in their right for freedom. Putin's barbaric venture cannot be allowed to succeed, and he quotes. 10 hours ago, Mayor of Bucha, as of today, bodies of 403 people killed during Russian occupation were found. There's an announcement video on there, but I believe it is in Ukrainian. Clashes reported in the Borava direction. Again, that is in the east. It's actually east of Kharkiv, sorry. Here, there's that explosion reported on the map there again as the conflict in that area starts to heat up. Epi Moo actually with a comment I got a kick out of there. He says if loose lips can sink ships, a drone with a bloody big bomb can. Always good, insightful comments from you, Epi. Thank you for tuning in this evening. All right, so moving on here. 10 hours ago, head of Donetsk Regional Administration says up to 22,000 people were killed in Mariupol. At least 33,500 were brought to Russia or occupied territories. Head of Donetsk Regional Administration says up to 22,000 people were killed in Mariupol. At least 33,500 were brought to Russia or occupied territories. I feel like that report wants to say evacuations and not 22,000 deaths. Does that mean soldiers' deaths as well as civilian deaths in Mariupol? If so, that is a very, very stark assessment there. Now, is this a Ukrainian Donetsk Regional Administration or is this the Russian Donetsk Regional Administration? 9 hours ago, Ukrainian border guards increased security on the border with so-called Transnistria and Belarus. Those of you in the chat, I know there were some people skeptical of the Transnistria involvement. Yesterday, we had official reports that the Ukrainian Defense Ministry is concerned about their involvement, which would possibly signal that they're looking to move into Odessa, as I was talking about earlier, eventually, if they get to that point. Now you see clearly here, just today, there's a report here. The Ukrainian border guards have increased the security on the so-called border with Transnistria. They've also done the same thing up here along Belarus on that northern border. Okay, they want to make sure that if the Russians are going to do any other, if they're going to head into Ukraine from the north again, that they are met with a significant resistance in those areas. 9 hours ago, Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin spoke Tuesday morning with Ukraine Defense Minister. Per Pentagon Press Secretary, Austin emphasized U.S. efforts to meet Ukraine's most urgent needs and battlefield requirements. This includes both humanitarian aid and lethal and defensive aid. 9 hours ago, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Sorry about that, guys. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and U.S. President Joe Biden discussed boosting military and economic support to Ukraine on Tuesday, as well as the need to end Western reliance on Russian oil and gas. A spokeswoman for Johnson's office stated. 8 hours ago, Security Service of Ukraine has captured pro-Russian politician Viktor Medichuk. Again, I reported on this earlier, and actually, here's the image now. I'm going to open up the image so you can see him there. There's Mr. Victor there. Some have called him a right-hand man in some regards to Putin. I wouldn't go as far as to say that, but he's definitely He's definitely up there on the chain of command. That is without a doubt. Or at once was, I would say. Once was. That's a more accurate way to put it. Has captured a pro-Russian politician, Viktor Medvedchuk, again, who was, I believe he was on the run last time I believe last time I heard. He was on the run before being captured, if I'm not mistaken. 8 hours ago, Russian army launched a missile strike at infrastructure in Mirharad. You can see that on the map here in the center of the country. 7 hours ago, 1 killed, 2 wounded as a result of Russian army shelling in the Babai village of Kharkiv region. Again, you can see those strikes here a little bit south of Kharkiv. You can see a few other strikes here to the northeast that have happened in the past 8 hours or so as well. In fact, those actually were 6 hours ago here. Those are those strikes here in Kharkiv, in the city. 5 hours ago, U.S. President Joe Biden's administration is expected to announce as soon as Wednesday another $750 million in military assistance for Ukraine for its fight against Russian forces. 2 U.S. officials familiar with the matter told Reuters. 5 hours ago, a top U.S. defense official said on Tuesday that the Pentagon would convene a classified meeting with the leaders of the biggest American military contractors on Wednesday to discuss stepped-up assistance to Ukraine. This comes as, again, they tried to move more of that lethal aid, more of that defensive aid into the country there. 5 hours ago, YouTube is currently experiencing partial outages in multiple countries, incident not related to country-level internet disruptions or filtering. Again, actually, this is the first report I've heard of that. I did not hear about that earlier. So, again, that comes, as we've seen a lot of cyber disruptions over the past 2 months since this war has began. If they are related, it still remains to be seen. 5 hours ago, the OSCE will publish the findings of its investigation into human rights abuses and atrocities committed in the ongoing Russian war in Ukraine tomorrow, per Spox, for the Russian spokesperson for the U.S. mission. Again, I reported on that earlier. We will have the details on that for you guys tomorrow if there is anything of significance. 5 hours ago, President Biden labels Putin's invasion of Ukraine a genocide for the first time. I quote, your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide a half a world away. I can play that video for you guys here now, if it'll load. I'm just trying to do my due diligence here and show you guys all the material. Okay, so it's going to actually...
Your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide a half a world away. To help deal with this Putin price hike, I've authorized the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is by far the largest release of our national reserve in history. It's a wartime bridge to increase oil supply as we work with U.S. oil producers to ramp up their production this year. Your family budget, your ability to fill up your tank, none of it should hinge on whether a dictator declares war and commits genocide a half a world away. To help deal with this Putin price hike, I've authorized the release of 1 million barrels per day for the next 6 months from our Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This is by far the largest release of our national reserve in history. It's a wartime bridge to increase oil supply as we work with U.S. oil producers to ramp up their production this year. Your family...
Okay, so you saw there the President of the United States giving that statement. Of course, guys, I have to show, when a leader of the United States like that gives a press release, I have to show it. So I try to do my due diligence and show all sides of everything here, and show, whenever anybody gives a public statement, I try to show it, even if it's Putin giving a public statement. We need to hear what he says. We need to hear what everybody says. Wartime? I didn't actually hear what he said there. I was paying attention to something else. I'm not gonna lie. Wartime what? YCH0 says, can someone remind me I have food on in 20 minutes? Roger that, YCH. We'll try our best. All right, guys. So again, moving on, 5 hours ago, reports of explosions in the Zhytomyr region. In fact, when I came on tonight, this was a breaking, these explosions here in Zhytomyr, west of Kiev. So that was a strike there that occurred in Zhytomyr. I'm not sure if it's, at this time, I'm not sure what the ordnance was that was dropped there in Zhytomyr. If it was ballistic missile or if it was cruise missile, we're still unsure. I'm still waiting to get more information on that. 3 hours ago, our nightly round of air raids came right on time, just like it did last night. Dnipro Oblast, Kirvi Oblast, Kharkiv, Dnipro, Kirviri, again, more and more, Kramatorsk, Polskava, and finally Pokrovsk about an hour ago. I'll go and refresh our map here just to make sure there's no newer reports. And that looks like it's about it for our live UA map updates. So now I'm going to switch over for a short while here for about the next 20 or 30 minutes here, where I'm going to take questions from the chats, so the Twitch chat as well as the YouTube chat and the Twitch chat as well. So if any of you have questions or comments or anything, now is the time. We'll go ahead and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A. Thud Falls says Canada has lots and is ready to go. Just send ships. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Canada is also sending quite a large share of lethal aid, if I'm not mistaken, if not defensive aid. Somebody asked, where's Dnipropetrovsk? I'm pretty sure it's in the Dnipro Oblast, if I'm not mistaken. We could actually look that up on the map here. That's a good question. I'm pretty sure it's in the Dnipro Oblast, if I'm not mistaken. So here's Dnipro, the city. Dnipropetrovsk is, let me look here. Dnipropetrovsk. Petrovsk, is that how you pronounce it? Oh, so that is, so Dnipropetrovsk is Dnipro. It's just another term for Dnipro. So here is Dnipropetrovsk, this area here. I did not know that. We all learn something every day. Thud Falls actually asks a really good question. Asks, your buddy with the webcam that had to leave with his cat, any word on him? He left Ukraine for a while, and went to Poland. He then returned without the cat. The cat stayed with the family that he was staying with in Poland. He then returned to Kiev. And then the Russians pulled out of Kiev, and so now things are going pretty well for him in the city. In fact, I just talked to him just the other day. I plan to speak with him more over the coming days. Okay, I'm gonna put this Kharkiv cam here because I like that one. I'll actually shrink it down a little bit. There we go. Right there, looks good. I gotta refresh those Chernivtsi cams as well. Not Pocky says, any news on the sniper from Canada, Wally? No, not. In fact, I get somebody that asks that to me every day, I think, and it's like if he's in the country, he's fighting. You're rarely going to get reports on where he's at or what he's doing. I guarantee we'll hear about him eventually, though. Yeah, when that story first broke, I reported on that when he was actually traveling to the country. Michelle asks, does anyone know much about Putin's military guy they call the Butcher? You're speaking of the general, I believe, that is now in charge, the unified battlefield commander in charge of this renewed offensive in the east of Ukraine. I don't know much about him personally, but there's a lot you can find out about him doing a few quick searches on the internet. I do know that the Putin trusts him enough to get the job done here in the east, and so we're going to have to see if he's able to, live up to the task. Susan Maxwell says last night instead of last night. I actually, maybe I just stuttered there, but no. Where I'm from, we pronounce it as last. last night, not last night. Maybe that is an East Coast thing, though. Poseidon says, Nemico Network, in the last Biden speech video, our president mentioned wartime. Yeah. I mean, I guess in a way it is. This is wartime. I guess not. I mean, indirectly for the U.S., not directly. Charles Foote says, who is doing... That's a really good question, actually. He says, who is doing better at spreading disinformation, Russia or the USA? I would say if the USA is spreading a fair share of information, which we know, of course, both sides are joining in the propaganda war. All right, this is inevitable. It's wartime. Okay, um, if the U.S. is in fact spreading false information, they're doing a hell of a good job at it, because at least most of it has been airtight so far. But yeah, I do acknowledge the fact that there is false information on both sides of the spectrum. That's a really good question, though. Taz6 says, Nemico, do you see the possibility of escalation into Finland? What would be the repercussions of that? Well, I could tell you the repercussions of them moving into Finland would probably be tenfold the repercussions of them moving into Ukraine. After this Ukraine crisis, if NATO saw Russia moving into Finland, or if the U.S. saw if the U.S. saw Russia moving into Finland, it would be immediate escalation on all fronts, I believe. That would be proof to the United States and to NATO that Russia's not going to stop here, and I believe it would warrant immediate intervention on their behalf. Yes, Captain Spock points out, back talking about the Butcher again, that general, he was known for being brutal in Syria. That's why Putin appointed him. I mean, it's not only the fact that his brutality, but his ability to conduct battlefield strategy is what Putin really needs here. But yeah, also brutal. Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's definitely a point there to make. Pocket Frog says, Nemico, you've said last night 6 times already. Really, I actually did not even catch that. I usually say last night, but it might be that my mouth is dry after talking for 2 hours, so sometimes that can have an effect on things. Lotus asks, do the oligarchs have recourse like international court to get back their confiscated properties? Doubtable. Yeah, doubtable. I don't think they do, given their position currently. Epimoo says blatant lies from Russia isn't disinfo. I mean, I think to the uneducated, like to the uninformed, it is not the uneducated. To the uninformed, it can be. That's why it's dangerous. I agree with what you're saying, though. Blatant lies. I mean, for us at least, aren't really disinformation because we can see that they're blatant lies, but not everybody can. And also, it's about the fact that those lies aren't meant for us. They're meant for the Russian people. It's really about convincing the Russian people, and not so much about convincing us of things. Mimi saying Kharkiv is all clear at the minute, so there must have been an all clear alert off that since those other air raid alerts had come in. Jeffrey, with an excellent question, asks, with Biden announcing the release of oil reserves, is the EU doing anything to combat oil reliance with Russia? I believe they are taking steps, and there's been calls to alienate Russian oil from the European economy and to finally cut those ties. However, it remains to be seen if they're going to follow through, as it's a big deal for them to be get cut off from that Russian oil. And as to if they're doing anything, to combat or and increase the resilience, resilience against being cut off from Russian oil, I haven't seen any concrete steps taken yet, but there is talk of those steps being taken. AC asks a good question. He says, "How do you see international alliances shifting after this war is all said and done?" Well, it depends on where it goes. It depends on how things end up. It's definitely possible that we see a future in which it's either going to go two ways. Either Russia is going to crash and burn entirely, which again could totally shift things not in their favor, or if Russia does succeed in their efforts here, we could see more more trade, more power, so to speak, given to like the BRICS nations, giving to Russian, like Russian partner states and stuff are going to be bolstered in this. I think if they're able to kind of make a success out of it. However, that remains to be seen, and it doesn't look very likely at this time. Um, yeah, again, it all depends on where this war goes and how far it goes. Just Me asks, what happened with the planes we were tracking last night? Any updates on their shipments? We talked about that last night. Oh, you talked about the Chinese planes? I don't have any updates on the Chinese planes at this time. I know Fallen Rays was tracking those for quite a few hours the other night. They were most likely just doing cargo shipments or some kind of military maneuvers within the country. Pocket Frog asks with a very good repeat question to that, asking Nemico Network, have you heard anything about the China sending missile systems to some of the Baltic states? I actually haven't, but I have heard unconfirmed reports that they were looking to do so, that they were looking to possibly send some lethal aid up there. Again, I'll probably have more information on that in the coming week or so here. I know there is kind of a Chinese angle to this that I do want to cover eventually here. A. Charles says, Nemico Network, a Russian slice of victory prior to their May Day, meaning objective prior, and how significant is that date for capitalization for Russia, in your opinion? It's extremely important. However, if they're unable to accomplish their objectives, mainly the ones that I outlined tonight, being capturing the Donbass, Mariupol, the South Coast, maybe pushing to the Dnieper, maybe pushing to the ML5. Those are first priorities, and those are priorities for them. And if they aren't able to at least successfully accomplish one of those, I don't think we're going to see that Mayday victory that they're looking for. Lanny Who says, have you talked about the Red Cross in Russia helping with the civilians that were forced east? No, I actually have not heard too much information on that. I did hear of those reports. Possibly that'll be in the list for tomorrow or the next day's agenda. Maybe I'll cover that in one of our stories, or possibly for one of my micro reports tomorrow. We can take a look into that. Taz6 says, Nemico, do you think if Le Pen wins the French presidential election, that it will affect the Ukraine war? Polls are 53 to 47 at the moment. Again, I don't like to speculate on things like that. If in any effect it would have, it would most likely. I mean, she would. It's hard to. Again, I don't like to speculate, but you could possibly see an increase in support in the form of more lethal aid being sent into Ukraine. That's possible. Lynn Lebrant says, "How long is this live for?" Well, I'm live every night from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, I also hop into the live stream over the course of the day at random for anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours, sometimes even longer than that. And if you want to find out when I'm going live for both these official reports and for the micro random reports, you can stay tuned to our announcements channel over on our Discord server. That's the best way to get those updates as to when I go live. You can also subscribe as well to the channel. That's also a really good way to get those notifications. Yeah, tonight I'm going to be I'll be on here talking till about 11, in between 11 and 11:30, give or take, and then I'll be taking a short break for a little while, and I might or might not go to sleep. I might hop back on and talk to you guys for a little while longer later. but I'm definitely going to take a break after the report here to do a few things. Yeah, so the clock does freeze. We had this clock working for a month and a half or more, and then all of a sudden, the past few weeks, it started having issues. I'm actually going to be replacing the clock in the coming days. I'll be replacing the clock with one that doesn't freeze. I'll be replacing the layout with our finalized cam layout. We have two layouts. We have a layout that's just cams, and we have a layout that you're looking at now, which is the Situation Room. That's going to be finalized, and the cam room layout is going to be finalized. The newsrooms will be finalized. All that will be finalized. We're going to replace the audio meter with a more functional one. We're going to replace a bunch of things and finalize all of these layouts and everything for you guys so that everything is more redundant and works a little bit better. AC, with a clarifying question, says, do you think this war will result in Ukraine forming closer alliances with a country that has more military power? I would argue that it's already doing so now. I would argue that it already has done so with countries like the United States, with NATO and NATO partner countries, Poland especially, Britain, especially. We'll definitely see more of that. There's no doubt about that, especially now that they're looking to fast track into the EU. We'll definitely probably see more of that, guaranteed. Mimi saying things are all over the place globally, it seems. Yes, that's very true. Len LeBrance, thank you for tuning in again this evening. Again, thank you to everybody that tuned in this evening. I'm just trying to catch up in my chat here because I am behind a little bit. So I'm trying to. Taz6 actually says, didn't Le Pen say she would leave NATO? I hadn't heard that. I don't really keep too up to date with French politics or what's going on there, but it's possible. She has pledged to leave the EU, says Fancy Hat. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I did not see that. He actually posted a link there, a source link to a Wikipedia article on her political position that's very useful. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, I think that about wraps it up for this evening's reports. I'm going to go ahead and kind of give my closing statements now. So tonight we went through the headlines. We kind of dived into the Chernobyl situation there and kind of gave you guys a little bit of updates on what happened with those nuclear plants, both Chernobyl and Zaporizhia. We went through and did our little outline of what I'm calling the Russian options here moving forward. We then went through all of our live UA map updates and got you guys up to date on what the strikes that are occurring, some of those Russian troop movements that are occurring in and around the area. Len LeBrant says we should have kept troops in Ukraine before the war started. Call Putin's bluff. Basically, we told him wait until we pull troops out, then you can go in. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I mean that this might not have happened actually if we would have had a more significant presence there. That's all. That's always possible. So again, guys, thank you to everybody that's tuning in tonight. It was really awesome to see so many returning viewers tuning in this evening, both on YouTube and Twitch. Again, we're going to be live every night from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I also come on during the day for micro reports and to hang out with you guys during the day occasionally. If you want to find all of our sources or join in on the community, the best place to do that is over on our Discord server. There's a link to that in the description below the stream. The link to that is discord.gg/Nemico. Make sure you read the rules first before you join in over there. We have a beautiful community we've been building over there. The accomplishments of our community are absolutely astounding. surrounding some of the things that we've been able to do. Everything from tracking flights on radar, tracking naval ship movements in the Black Sea, intercepting radio communications, running translations, reports. People coordinating to help people in Ukraine. People like Mehmet. We had people from our Discord, help him find a place to stay in Poland, and all sorts of things we've been able to do. So it's great the amount of accomplishment that we've been able to do there, and it's because of you guys that we're able to do that stuff. So again, if you're looking to join in on the community a little bit more, the best place to do that is on that Discord server. Also in the link, in the description below the stream, you can find links to most of our sources. The rest of those you can find on the Discord server, of course. You can also find links to where you can donate and help Ukraine, and a plethora of other links to our sources and any other resources that you guys need. If you're following along on YouTube and haven't already, the best way to support the channel is to hit that subscribe button and to share the stream. Also to hit that like button if you can. It's the best way to get the algorithm's attention. Also, if you're following along on Twitch, thank you guys so much. My Twitch crowd, you guys are awesome. In fact, really quickly, I'm going to go through and just thank everybody that's subscribed tonight. The Most Banned Queen subscribed for a month. Thank you so much, Most Banned Queen. That's awesome. Thank you so much for the support. I've seen you in the chat quite a bit lately, as well as Miss Chris 620 gifted a sub. She actually gifted 2 subs, I think, earlier this evening, to LD429 and to Alpha November Oscar. Thank you again, guys, so much for those subs and that support. I love having you guys in the chat. Matt O'Neill says, did you get to do the staff meeting on Discord? I have not actually got around to it yet. I've been absolutely swamped the past few days, but I'm going to get to that either later tonight or tomorrow. I've been kind of trying to hold those impromptu when I get time, but I've been a little swamped, so I'm going to try to get to that as soon as I can. For those of you that missed tonight's report, you can find it on the YouTube channel. I will be uploading it as soon as we're done here, and it'll take a couple hours to upload. Or not, it takes like 1 minute to upload, but it takes a couple hours for YouTube to process it because it's about 2 hours long. But it should be available later tonight for those that missed the report tonight. You'll be able to have a full recording of the entire report, and as well as last night's report is also up on YouTube as well now. So, all right, to everybody that tuned in tonight, thank you guys so much. Again, this was your nightly report on the war in Ukraine for April 12th of 2022. Until next time, guys, thank you for tuning in, and stand by.